Hello, I read the book The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene. This book has 267 pages and was published in 1940 by the Viking Press. This book was written in the 1930s while there was religious persecution going on in Mexico, and the author of this book was born in 1904 in Berkhamsted, Hertfordshire, New England. He went to Balliol College and graduated with a BA. He is recognized as the 92nd most influential Catholic of the 20th century. He wrote 30 other novels and eventually married Vivian Dayrell Browning and had no children. And he was also the fourth of 6 children. He also has a festival named after him, and he was bipolar. His inspiration for this book were the travels he took to Mexico in the 1930s and my connections to this author. I couldn't really connect this author, but he did go to college, and I also want to go to college. This book was told in first person, and it takes place in Mexico in the 1930s, and the main characters in this book are the lieutenant, the priest. The lieutenant, who is the antagonist, the priest is the protagonist. The mestizo, who is the man trying to turn in the priest, and a mestizo is a man with one white parent and one Native American parent. And then there's Mr. Tench, who's at the beginning and the end of the story. And then the summary of this book is basically that Mr. Tench and the priest meet randomly one day, and they have a nice conversation on Mr. Tench's porch, and then the priest is supposed to leave on a boat that evening, and then he gets sidetracked by a dying woman, and then he gets sidetracked even more, and he ends up in a banana plantation. And then the police come to that plantation, and they want to search in the barn, but the people who own it don't let them, and because they don't want to get in trouble for holding him. Then he decides he can't stay there because it's not safe, so he goes to the village where he was born, and when he's there, the police come there also, and then they take a hostage, and the police and the lieutenant even talk with the priest, and they don't recognize him. And then he decides that he can't stay there, so he leaves for a city called Carmen, and then along the way he meets the mestizo, and they travel together for a while, and then the priest realizes he wants to turn him in, so he ditches the mestizo, and the priest heads to a big city called Conception. Once he gets there, he gets arrested for having whiskey, and then he goes to jail for 1 day. Then the lieutenant talks to him, doesn't recognize him, and gives him some money, and then the priest leaves and goes to the mountains on the border, and he crosses the mountains and he's safe. And then after a week or so living in the city on just the other side of the mountains, the priest is found by the mestizo, and the mestizo tells him that there's a man that's dying on the other side of the mountains. So I can't tell you if the priest goes back or not, because that would ruin the ending. And themes in this book, the main theme I saw in this book was when I noticed that the lieutenant was always stewing on trying to create a perfect world for himself. He was always really grumpy the whole time, and I think that's because he was trying to live where he could have perfection, and he's never gonna get it, so don't try to stew on having that. Ways I relate to the book, the priest was always really forgiving in the book, and I tried to be forgiving like he was. And then symbolism I saw that the alcohol addiction that the priest had just probably symbolizes that all the weaknesses that we each have ourselves, and we're all of our imperfections. And then the impact this book has is the effect that it has on each individual reader that reads the book. And I don't think I would recommend this book because it took a while to get into, but I did eventually enjoy it once I got into it. And I would recommend this for 9th grade and up, because it's not too difficult of a book, but there's some challenging parts.